Hello, everybody.
Hello.
And say, here we are, Melissa Maria, coming at you with a new weekly discussion, our Healer's Corner. And because we get a lot of questions about the different type of healing, what kind of healing can help with what issue. And so we thought, it might be helpful if we actually talk about it and have a platform that you guys can come ask questions, that you can go back and listen and maybe help find some guidance that way. But, I think between the 2 of us, I honestly was losing count, like, how many different modalities between the 2 of us that we have trained in that we actively use.
hmm
And I feel like more people know kind of what I do because of all the talks that I've done online. But Maria, I think, if we'll start, like, what have you trained in over the years that in all of your healing toolbox, what do you have in your toolbox?
I am a Silva graduate. I was trained in Silva Basic Life, which is always looking at your options. And there's just so many levels on that one too, because I was trained how to astral travel, distant healing, levitation, um, going into walls, leaves, animals, vibration of colors, smells of colors. And it that really that was the beginning of everything. And then pranic healing came along, and so it was like spirit have always led me, and it built up whatever I learned from Silva, also built up from that. And pranic healing, I was curious about Reiki. I went the complete opposite. Usually people take Reiki first and then they go to pranic healing, but I did pranic healing and I was curious about Reiki. So I became a Reiki master. I took the class there. I've also did color tones, tone works, intuitive shaman. I'm a pakakuna, which is a mystic shaman, Peruvian mystic shaman, and medical intuitive. Yeah, that's a lot. I've also took classes with a Hawaiian kahuna, and I learned lomi lomi, which is actually was really nice because I went back to my roots.
Mhm.
Um, I learned lomi lomi. It is massage, a form of massage that the ancient Hawaiians used to do. Bone, and from there I was retaught laulima. I was retaught bone washing. So yeah, it's a lot of vast things that I got into. I was just led to it.
I mean, I feel like, if there were sounds to that, like, as you would be walking into the store, you would sound like the janitor with the big set of keys from all of the different healing that you have trained in, and, on some of the classes we even sat in together, like, I believe you and I were in Lovey's integrated energy therapy session
hmm
and,
Yeah.
learning those, so it is because of you that, like, I have seen the goodness and the effectiveness of pranic, that is on my list, like, it's high up there to go learn to do myself. I just need them to get closer than California currently, so I can go learn in this. But I myself have Reiki, many years of the level 3 and 4 of the Pakakuna tradition, integrated energy therapy. Um, Gosh, now my brain's going like some of the other ones, but
hmm
I think between the 2 of us, there's like 9 or 10
hmm
that we use. I find like I don't use one more over the other. Like there's always like kind of a combination and it kind of depends on the client of deciding what is best for that, of what they need at that time. And I think you've mentioned that you're kind of the same way, that depending on what
hmm
the client asks when you're in that private room, they're like, I need help with.
hmm
And spirit just kind of says, do this, now do this, and then do this. And guys, while we're talking, feel free to ask questions. So tonight we're going to kind of keep it open for general things. Hey, Divine. Um,
Yeah.
with all those forms of healing, how do you know where to start? And I think we were kind of starting to answer that before. I'm like, ooh, tell them to ask questions. So, like Maria, how do you like line out when you have that client come in of how you're going to go approaching?
I usually, since I was trained to feel the person's energy field, And I 9 out of 10 times I usually hit it on target. If I know that they're more like connected to the earth, then I would take the shaman. If they're more they pretty much are energy wise. If they need the energy, they need some kind of sweeping and pranic healing. The difference between pranic, and I get asked this a lot, the difference between pranic healing and Reiki, they're both energy, they both work. Okay. But pranic healing, we go one step ahead by sweeping and preparing the energy field. Because the belief in pranic healing is closer to the body. We have like several different layers in our energy field. But the last three closer to the body is what we pinpoint on. So it's the outer, the health, and the inner, and then the body. And then in the body, we go into the chakras. And there's not only seven, we work with 12, and there's not only 12, there's a lot more chakras. You have your minor, you have your meridians, all of that. So I have to be present and sense the person. And they're talking to me, and as I'm talking to them, I'm also picking up another energy field. and and then I do ask them a question. I said, you feel so at ease going to Mother Nature, whether it's a metro park, whether it's your backyard. Yes. And then I know it's a shaman that I have to pull up. If they have no idea what they need, and they start telling me what is going on with them, and that is great because that's good information for me. I actually scan you. I scan you. And when I was trained, I feel energy in my hands. I feel energy all over the person, but I also start scanning with my eyes because that's how I was trained in the Silva. I was trained to scan with my eyes. So that's how I read the person first. I hope that helps you with your question.
Sometimes, which I don't do a whole lot of public healing 'cause I'm usually busy with the store, right? But I'll do certain ones that, they're like, "I need you." And I'm like, "Clearly, if spirit kept telling you to come track me
Mhm,
down," right? And I do a lot of my work for military members and cancer survivors and cancer patients. Um, but a lot of the times knowing like, oh, I have, Lady Jane later today at 6:30, like I am already kind of tuning into her throughout the day of like what needs to happen, what do we need to do, what are we working on? And so no healing session is ever the same. Because
mhm,
sometimes I'm like, oh, we need the massage table. I'm going to knock you out, energetically. And, there might be stones, there might be different things going on. Um, so I feel like it would be hard for me to teach a here's how you do this because it changes every time that I've done a healing because it depends on the person. But I'm kind of tapping into them before they're even in the door.
mhm,
So I feel like I'm prepared before they even get in of like, here's what we need to do. So I have that room ready, I have the tools ready. And, I will still ask, like, what are we, addressing today? That, because then there's like what the client is aware of. And then there's kind of like that subconscious and what their higher self is like. There's this, but here's some more of that underlying root problem that they're not either aware of or they're afraid to say out loud.
mhm,
So, that's kinda how I get started with it, and, it's worked well for me. I feel like it's never steered me wrong that way. Um, and that being said, a little note or side note for me, like, if I make you cry, then I know we've done good
mhm,
work, like, we've got
mhm.
to it, because
That
that release that happens.
Yes, yes. For me, it's crying and coughing because coughing is another way of purging. You getting and sometimes some of the clients, oh, I don't want to cough in the room because of. I go no, because I will clear it. I will completely clear the room for the next person to come in.
Mhm.
Everything that I do before I even start, I actually center myself to the source, which is to me is divine. I call him divine. Some people may call him God. Some people may call him Great Spirit. Some people may call him universe. But I just center myself, and I have this connection. So that also, like Melissa was saying, she already tuned in. Sometimes I may not have the opportunity to tune into that person. um, I do look up my appointments. If it's a second Saturday or third Saturday, I do look at my appointments and I tune into their name. I look at their name, I tune into it, and I have an idea. But it also is great when a person interact with you and tell you, basically where they're coming from. But I've already tuned into that person, and it does help that way. For I think a lot of healers do different ways to prepare. Um, and it's really hard when it's in a psychic fair scenario because it's anyone who comes in. So that's when I use that ability to tune into their energy field
Mhm.
and have the conversation with their higher self and what's going on there.
So Erin has a question of what about body temperature changes when you're working on someone?
No.
I
I get really heated.
that's another thing I think that I work for. And sometimes it may not even be them necessarily. Sometimes I will change, like my body temperature will fluctuate depending on the amount of work going on. But Maria, you started to answer and then we laughed and I cut you off. So
That's okay. My body temperature, I generate a lot of energy, so I get really hot. And I also, that happens with me also when I'm doing my meditation. I get I start generating, and then when I notice my body is generating, I know that I'm just pulling in a lot of energy. And I'm just, it's not just from Mother Earth or the, up above. It's all over my surroundings. I'm pulling it all in. So I get really heated.
because sometimes and as she says that there's healing that can happen in spaces too, so not just people. And
Mhm,
so, working in a retail space, you have people coming and going all the time. And
mhm,
depending on what's going on, you kind of clear that space, heal that space or that person. Because one of the great things about the Peruvian shamanism that we're both trained in is there's this fun little catch where we do not need to ask permission to do healing work depending on your action and behavior. And I know
mhm,
there's so many like you have to have permission or you're impeding free will. Here's the difference. And this is what applies to the store. If somebody's coming in and they're already like emotionally upset about something, they just got yelled at, or they're almost had a car wreck, or they're agitated, right? And either way, they're spilling that emotion out, be it they're verbally dumping it or they're just pacing. They are taking that uncomfortableness that they're feeling and they're spreading it. So now
mhm,
you've kind of given permission because you're sharing it out there. And, so that's when I'm like, well, we need to keep the store, in a comfortable spot. So, that's when it's like, okay, let's go dump this out. Let's go take care of this. Let's go address that person. And while standing there is when, I can kind of like reach in there, take that anxiety down, take that, whatever is making them like just agitated and just like, okay, let's calm down some. Um, but because they did not ask permission before, they're like, "Let me dump my trauma on you guys as I come into a public spot," then I don't need that permission to keep everybody else comfortable, right?
mhm. Yep.
So, and sometimes in doing that, like I say, she's like, "Oh, I might turn red," because that's a physical change that I'm doing within me in our tradition. Like I am pulling that in, transmuting, and like sending out either neutral or positive. So that is happening in me while
Mhm,
taking that off. Um, so that's where that can come from. And I know like my temperature will change depending on if it's my physical body kind of doing that work or if part of me is stepping aside and letting like spirit and energy come in, then I find that I will get colder than rather than getting warmer. Um, Divine says that happened at a pagan festival, right? So um that was one of the things we learned. We had like different degrees of homework for that, learning
Mm-hmm.
to heal that. And it was like a stranger, a person you know, then your greatest enemy. And the example that our teacher gave us for the person you didn't know is like, go to the grocery store, go
Mm-hmm.
get the longest line and look for the person that's like, and like, geez Louise, how long, can they go any slower? That's the person, that you do this work on.
And that was refreshing because when I did that, I picked this one. There's like there were several people online, but I decided to pick on the one that was mostly agitated. And when I did that, I saw the difference happen in front of me. I saw the trans. I was like, wow, this is cool.
Mhm. Mhm.
That maybe there should be a job that I could just stand in line and help all these people so the cashiers will not get agitated, trying
Right.
to get these people through the line and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, you're helping everybody by taking care of that one person. So you're just making
Yeah.
they're spreading misery, and misery does not the company does not love the misery. So Joshua asks, what healing would you recommend for someone who feels like their energies are locked up, and having trouble opening them back up? For me, it feels like my body feels more restricted and stiff.
In pranic healing, I was taught that everybody has a certain ratio on their chakras, how they're spinning, and they go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. When it starts to slow down, that means the body has taken too many stale or has not really um, released some of these stale energy, negative energy, if you want to call it. And so it's not locked. It's not blocked. It's just going on a slower spin to start getting rid of it. That if you know any of these modalities, even in Reiki, if you know how to do Reiki on yourself, that will be helpful because you are helping your body dispel some of that negative stale energy. If that does not work, if you don't have that training, then the quickest thing for me, I would say, is meditation.
Mhm.
If you meditate and you get yourself in that center, it's going to start to release some of that. And then and when you're meditating, understand the energy is being released, but also divine energy is coming into your body. Once you meditate, you're going to start to calm down a little bit. You're going to start feeling like, oh, that's great, or if that doesn't work, you can just take a walk in your backyard, go hug a tree.
Go hug a
That
tree.
is just so great. I mean, you hug a tree, stay there for about 10-15 minutes, or put your back by the tree. Mother Nature there's so many healing energies around it. And that was the one thing that I loved about our shaman class because we went out into nature, we went out into the hikes, and it just felt so like, oh, I'm getting rid of all the stuff. Great.
You could I agree with the meditation. I
Mhm.
would only add to it, and Joshua, I don't know if this makes sense to you, but, like, I call them, like, the active meditations, and I don't know if that's what they're generally called across the board, but you can do things like when you're outside, and if you are somebody that you go into a lake or moving water, it's like, picture where you feel that block at,
Mhm.
wherever that may be, and it doesn't always have to be in a chakra center. Maybe you feel like it's in my left shoulder for some reason. Don't
Mhm.
overthink it, like, here it is. And then, like, if you're in moving water, like, allow that water to wash over and wash it away, and allowing that release. And if you find yourself for whatever reason going, "Oh, but not yet," why? And let it go. So when you ask that why, there is your reason why that's hanging there for some reason, and
Mhm.
and allow that go. Right now, probably nobody wants to go jump in the moving water outside, especially if you're in Ohio. So, in a shower, let it go. If you're a runner or walker, like, stomp it out literally. Like, every time your foot hits the pavement, you are shaking free a little more of those blockages and let them go. Um, 'Cause I myself have a hard time sitting still and meditating. My mind will wander like nobody's business, and then I'm not really meditating anymore. But if I'm in movement, I'm keeping part of that brain occupied that I can then kind of be like, what is coming through? And then that's when it happens for me. Um, Now, if it were like a private healing session, we had like a flowering that we learned to where
Mhm.
it's kind of like opening up and flowering you into your abilities, and kind of working through those blocks wherever they may be and opening up to where they are. Now they don't come crashing in, like you don't go from like a 1 to a 20. It's just an opening, and as you start working through there, they start getting more stronger. You may learn like, oh, I thought I was only, clairaudient, but now I have some clairvoyance that I didn't even realize that that's what that was. So, but there's a number of ways, but I agree with meditation. I just like the physical,
Mhm.
but by all means,
And
whichever one works for you. Um,
well, a lot of people, when they think about meditation, they're thinking about sitting down going, and that's not what meditation is. It's anything that you are aware of in the moment. And what I think what Melissa is talking about is the mindful meditation. You are aware of where you are in nature, and you're also aware of your body, where the pain is, you know. Um, there is another way, that you can also do this. You don't It's like I said, yeah, Melissa said is is we're not gonna jump in the lake at this time of the year. But in a bathtub, you can fill up the bathtub with lukewarm water and take a handful of salt, throw it in the bathtub. Um, you can take lavender oil and put 9 drops of lavender oil in the bathtub. If you are for some reason allergic to lavender, there's some people who are. Take some amethyst stones and throw it in there, some tumblers, something, and just throw it in there. And stay in that bathtub no more than 20 minutes. After the 20 minutes, take one of those timers in there. After the 20 minutes, get out of the bathtub, let the water drain. Then you can shower off. And you're going to feel such a release because it's like, oh my gosh, that was great. And it's a way of mimicking instead of jumping into the lake. You can do it. You can do it in the bathtub and get rid of
I
all this
know there's
stuff.
polar plunges, but eh, eh.
That will
Um,
wake up your senses, though. The polar plunge.
ooh, that's what coffee's for. I'm not jumping in anything cold. Um, there's my block. I'm not getting cold. Now call me over on Twitch. She's like, I like to go out and have a quick scream. There's actually a lot of therapy that
Yes.
can be done.
Hmm.
Uh, and let me tell you, like I have thought about opening a side business, a rage room. Right? Go gather up a bunch of stuff from a thrift store and like you pay X amount of dollars to go in here with a baseball bat, a golf club, whatever, and just go break stuff, and get that anger, that release, that frustration out. And then like that calmness that comes, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
'Cause I'm sorry, like a punching bag will do something, but there's just something therapeutic about
Yeah.
breaking something sometimes, right?
Well, I like her screaming because it actually is funny. In Hawaii, I was taught this when I was growing up. You go into the beach, close to the water, like the shore end, you dig a hole, scream everything in there, cover it up, and walk away. And don't look back. And that's how I was taught when I was growing up in Hawaii.
I'm like, I think that what was it, Office Space? They were onto something when they took that printer out back and just beat the heck out of it.
Yeah, that was
Like,
great. A lot of frustration and stress
okay.
out. Yeah.
When do we break ground, right? Um, but yeah, I think there's something with the physical in helping in that meditation, just to releasing just pent up whatever it might be. Um, so you can think clearly in theory, and like the body is relaxed then to
Hmm.
allow that information to come in, those abilities to come in. But that was a great question.
Yeah.
But feel free, guys, ask questions, comments. Now we kind of talked about already a little bit between having to ask permission and when you don't have to, between the healing modalities. And it's funny because they each all have kind of like their own little sets of what you cans and can'ts do, though I will
Mhm.
say the, Peruvian shamanism, there's a lot less of what you can't
Mhm.
do, but it is also very nature connected and asking not only the nature of that person, but literal nature around of what you can and can't do. Um, and it's not even like, "Why am I not allowed?" It's just like, "Hey, do they need this?" And it's a, "No." Should we do this? No. And then if you're tuned in to listen well enough, you'll hear a no but or do
Mhm.
instead. Now, in your traditions, Brie, do you have any conflicting between any certain modalities of what you can and can't do, or like the rules, if you will?
Well, in pranic healing, we don't want to impose into a person's free will.
Mhm,
And whether they're so usually if a client books an appointment with me, I know that they are okay with this. But I have come across instances where a client knows a friend that is in a hospital and it could be in a coma. And I have had this come up to me several times. And so therefore I can I cannot go and ask a client because they're in a coma or they may be recovering from a post surgery. I can't go and ask them, or I said put them on the phone and let me ask them if I can do this. I go directly to their higher self. Now there have been times that I am giving a frank no,
mhm,
and usually it's during the time when the person is in the middle of transition or
mhm.
making a decision to go on transition. I and it's not my free will I'm going to be imposing on. It's going to be their free will I'm going to be imposing on. If they have not made a decision whether they want to stay or go, I cannot make do the healing and make them stay in a body or in experience that they are not don't want anymore or not ready for anymore. So it is the permission of the higher self that I have to ask.
Well,
If it's a child, if a parent books an appointment for the child for me, then I'm okay with that.
mhm.
But if it's if it's a parent that doesn't know and some friend or family member wants to, I said no. You have to talk to the parent. It's a minor.
It's like the DNR of healing, right?
Yeah.
And we both kind of had that recently because a mutual friend of ours, passed away. And, Maria, when you tapped in, she was like, "I'm done,"
Mm-mm. Yeah.
you know? So which so sucked, but it is what it is. Um, and it's funny because now, just a little side note, like, not long after she passed, I kept seeing this little book that it says, like, "It's your problem now because I'm dead," and it's like a death planner, and I'm like, "Ha funny." And Sierra just recently, she's like, "Look," and I'm like, "I know," and I immediately yelled at her from across time and space. Healing people without the permission, and usually you'll hear that when you kinda tap in, like, and most parents, right, they mean well, and if they're asking for healing for their kid, they mean well, and it's from a good
Mhm.
space. Now, if you've got somebody who's like, "Oh, my high school best friend that I haven't talked to in 5 years, I saw on Facebook that, they're in the hospital." That's kinda when I'm like, "Now you care? Why?" You know? My distrust of humanity sometimes comes in, and I'm like, "Why? Why?" But, yeah, like, so do you have a favorite in your modalities that you like using more than others?
Pranic healing has always been my go-to.
Mhm,
Um, and to give a summary of what it is, because people say, "Well, it's energy healing. Is it like Reiki?" And I said, "Kind of, sort of, but not really." Um, so I use the easiest way to explain is that when you mop your floor, do you sweep it first or do you just mop it? And they said, well, you sweep it first. I go, that's exactly what I do in pranic healing. I go in, I scan you, and then I sweep you first. So to me, that makes so much sense. Um, I pick and choose my modality. Sometimes I combine them. If I do a distant healing, I will start off with pranic healing. I may end with a shaman healing,
Mm.
or I may just do the Reiki location healing, and then I go straight to the person with pranic, and then I go straight finishing up with a shaman. And so it's just basically being in tune with spirit. And my pranic healing has um, a protocol, but when my teacher taught us, he go, this is a guideline. That's all it is. You may take out some, you may put, you need to pay attention to what you're picking up. And so even though there is a guideline for pranic healing, I may not follow it. I experience it. Go here, do this, spend more time here. So that's how I do it. And especially, I love distant because the person is completely like open. I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah, I haven't used the integrated energy therapy as much in the last couple years because let's face it, it can be time consuming to set up to do, right? But I find, at least when you get the whole table out, the chair and everything, you can do some quick chair stuff with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably what I would fall under more. But I find that it would be more of the shamanic work and then just listening in. Like if I felt like stones need to be incorporated for something, either for removal, um, or to just boost the energy of the room for the healing, which I'm like, oh, how funny. I was doing that before, Zane ever came into my life to taught me stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay. It's like they all get kind of combined, you know, in a way. So I don't know if I would have one more favored or one that I use more than the other. The maybe now after the years of the shamanic healing, just because of that energy pooling and listening and sending off.
Mm-hmm.
But um, I don't know if I would have a favorite because I think they're all different in a way and they all have their place and purpose.
I have
So
had clients that, because this is answering divines, have you ever had to turn someone away as a healer? I have clients, and I know that after you have seen me, more than 7 times, it's not working. So maybe my healing modality is not meshing with you. So then I would recommend another healer that I know of. You
mhm,
know, the whole entire thing is that I'm in the, and I know in Goddess Lead, I don't know about the others. In our community, we do recommend each other. If we, for some reason, their energy is not, their frequency is not meshing up with me, then okay, go and see so and so. You may be able, they may work wonders for you. After someone had come to me 7 times in less than 6 months, you need to go someone else.
yeah, because clearly something's not meshing.
It's
Yeah,
not meshing. It's not connecting.
yeah. I do love the integrity that we carry. That we're not going to just keep taking money and just for that client. It's like this isn't working. Go here, or you know what? We're not meshing. Be it for readings, like here's your money back. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we're not jiving. Like we don't do that.
Yeah.
Um, so and I think that was one of the first things, maybe about halfway through, that our shaman teacher was like, you are not the shaman for every person on this planet.
Yeah.
And knowing that and keeping yourself in check because it's all about the client, not your ego.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, and for me, I liked that. I liked that whole burden not being placed. That, gee, I don't have to heal every single person that's standing in front of me, dumping their trauma. Now, I will say there are times where I feel like universe is like, you are today's free therapist. And so, I go out for a show like I did this weekend, and I swear, like all day Saturday was like everybody at the fairgrounds was just coming and crying and dumping and crying. And I'm like, oh, good Lord. Like, that's why I'm really here today. Okay. You may not be the shaman for everyone, but there are days sometimes where I feel like the universe is like, you know what? You've been slacking on your office hours. So here's a bunch all in one day. And they're just going to tell you their stories without you even asking. And you get to clear that space and clear them off of that burden. And there you go. And I'm like, got it. Okay.
Yeah, I got those days too.
Yep.
In the store, got those days also. But I
Yeah.
don't mind it because I know that they were for like there have been times that I have popped up in the store. I'm not even, it's not my day to be there. I popped up there. The next thing I know, I'm talking to clients and I'm going, okay, this is the reason why I came here.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so those days are the actually those are the most rewarding days for me because I knew that I was planted there at that time, at that particular space for that
Mhm.
person.
Yeah.
But
Like
there's
they needed
also a
you.
yeah, but there's also a time that you're like, okay, like Melissa said that, for the third time, let's move on, or why don't we pick this up when I'm not cold and I'm in my car and I'm in a store.
Yeah, and then and when he was like, "I'll see you again because I'm here every day and I'm here," and I'm like, "How about when it's warmer? We can converse for an hour. I don't care." Now, and here's a question for you, Maria. So, as I have gotten into doing more and more of the energy work, like knowing that it's happening and training and getting into that and feeling, I won't say that I'm more of an introvert, but I find that I am less likely to be like, "Ooh, concert, lots of people, loud music." I find that I'm more like, "I don't need that." So, have you noticed if you like as you've grown in your healing work, if you're kind of like, I don't need those crowded places."
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because I one year my son talked me into going to Black Friday. And I was like, okay, I mean, because usually I was like, okay, I'll go. But that particular Black Friday, I got so ill because there were so many people. And I was picking up energy everywhere. No matter where I go, I'm picking up energy. And from then on, I said, I don't need that. I don't need to go out Black Friday shopping. I don't need to go in the middle, in the weekend and shop. I like to go when it's nice and less people. Yeah, I found that when I got into the healing work.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like, "Is it just me?" I'm like, "Is there
Yeah.
undiagnosed this?" I'm like, "No, actually, that kinda grew as I took on
Mhm.
more stuff." Because you are more aware of it. Um,
Mhm.
and I found, like, that, empathy grew more.
Yeah.
Um, and I find, like, my challenges right now is, like, grief, right? Even before our friend died, like, if I am somewhere that there's active grieving, crying, like, that rushes in faster than I can be like, "I don't need that right now." And it's like, I am now part of it, and I'm like, that is something for me to work on, and it is still a challenge for me to work on because I feel like at times, like, I would like to maybe get into death doula, right, and working with that, but I'm like, I have
Mhm.
to get this grief feeling under control and how to work with it more effectively and proactively for whoever a client might be before I can, step into that. Um, but it's funny, and, like, I find now that I have harder time sleeping on full and new moons ever since the shaman program, and I'm like,
Yep. Yep.
"Darn it,"
I
like,
always
this
had
was
that.
not a problem till now.
Yep. I had that problem. I started having the problem a week before the new moon, a week before and a week after. But a week after is not so bad because it is already starting to get, and I was like, okay, I'm starting to feel myself. But yes.
But yeah, because I feel like the being in the healer world, like, you're always learning, you're always be it about yourself, new modalities, how it works for you, the people around you. If I personally, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Maria, but if somebody says that they are the healer of all things and they know all the healing and they know all the like I call bullshit.
Mm-hmm. I do too. Because if you know everything, why are you not in the pedestal of the enlightened Buddha? Why are you not in the pedestal of raising someone from the dead? I'm sorry, but why are you not in that pedestal? I think a healer is very proficient when they're always learning, and I'm always learning. And I am thankful that I'm always learning. You know, whether it's a new meditation or a book that catches my eye, I say, ooh, or maybe a workshop. I have been doing a lot of mini workshops lately. And yeah, you're gonna be a guinea pig for me, Melissa, soon.
Okay. I mean,
I don't have my guinea pig anymore, you know?
you hear that, Sandy? You better show up wherever you're at.
So yeah, a healer, a healer will never learn everything. A healer will never know everything, or you know, if that was the case, yes, you could a minute you can just heal someone in an instant.
Mhm.
I would love to get to that place. I would love to be able to get to there, but I know that I am human. And the way I was conditioned and raised, which is a lot of crap that when you're in the healing when you're in the healing path, and you're going to start looking at things that happen in your childhood, whether from your family,
Mhm.
friends, teachers. It's like, oh, that's bullshit. Oh, that's bullshit. That's bullshit.
Right.
So because you got to get to your place where, okay, this I can deal with. This I believe in. This makes kind of sense to me. But this is bullshit. This is bullshit. So I got
Yeah.
to that place where I started cleaning up a lot of things, you know.
Mhm.
And you always learning. It's to the day that I take my last breath in this world, I will always be learning. And I know that. And that's wonderful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Catching up on some comments here. If you get to the point where you think you know it all and don't continue to grow, you just made yourself dangerous to others. I agree.
Yes.
I agree. Larry's like, we know everything when we cross over. And I can't tell you how true that is. Only like my favorite weekend in our shaman training is the death rites weekend.
Yes.
Like
I
it
love
was the best vacation because you're literally
this.
ripped out of your body and you're sent. And in that instance of being back as part of the source, I understood so many quantum physics things and understood. And then at that same time, it got boring
Mm-hmm.
because you knew there was nothing new to experience. You were there. And then at the same time, because I'm a smart ass, I'm like, really? That's why I'm down on this earth doing this shit right now? Because I'm bored. Really? I couldn't find another place to go have fun. I'm doing this. Kind of mad at myself right now for choosing this one, but okay. Um, but you did. And oh my God, if I would have had pen and paper in that first 30 seconds of coming back to try and scribble that all down. Um, but after about 5 minutes, I'm like, I couldn't even remember the beginning
Mm-hmm.
part of those thoughts because they were
Mm-hmm.
gone.
Yeah.
And right, I trolled myself. Um, Thanks for joining us, guys. We hope you'll join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. And we're going to talk on manifesting with some energy work.